Mr. Hughes here once again from Hughes Studios, and today I want to talk to you about using the text tool in Photopea. Now, it may not sound that glamorous because you're used to using the text tool. You've typed emails before, you've typed in Word or Google Docs, but this is going to work very differently than in a word processor. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a new file, and again, whatever size, just choose any of the templates you want. It really doesn't matter in this case because it's not something that we're really necessarily going to keep. Now, in order to work with the text tool, it's very simple. You can either select it from the toolbar or press the letter T on your keyboard, and that gives you access now to this properties panel where now I can choose the font, the style, the size of it, the color of it, all of that sort of fun stuff. Now, it's really important to note here the color, and that's kind of where we're going to start here right now. So I'm going to grab my text tool, and you can click this drop down menu and choose any font you want. These are the ones that come with the website. So if you notice that there's one that you may not know or one that you want to use and it's not here, we can certainly load them, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab one here at random. What is this? Emily's Candy. Okay, interesting. So I can choose a font, I can choose a style, a size, and then a color. So watch what's going to happen here. When I type, so if I put my font or my text here, I should say, you'll notice that it's black, which seems interesting because it's actually blue that we had chosen. This is for your shapes. This is for your font. So if I wanted to go ahead and select this and change my font color, I would use the one from the properties bar, and you'll notice there, now my color is changed. So let's deal a little bit with the text settings. You'll notice here that I've got some more settings for my text tool on the side, and the way that I got that is I'm using the character palette on the right hand side. So you can do that by either expanding the character palette by pressing the CHA palette over here, or simply going under Window, Character, and that'll get you these attributes as well. So a couple things that you want to notice is that you've got Emily's Candy here. I can go ahead and choose this font because I want to show you something here. When I choose Emily's Candy, you're going to notice, or that font I should say, you're going to notice that you only have a regular style. Well, if I grab my text tool and I highlight the text, and let's choose something different here, and let's see if we can find one that will actually, so let's grab, there was one I was using earlier called Deja Vu. And there it is right there. Now when I choose the Deja Vu font, you'll notice that I have more options here. So the person who designed the Deja Vu font didn't just come up with one style. They came up with a bold version. They came up with an italic. They came up with a bold italic or condensed. So I can choose either book or I can choose bold, and it will bold it for me. Whereas if you were working in a program, any word processing program, you would press Control B and it would bold it. Here the designer has actually made a bold version of it. So if you ever notice when you choose a font, you can also choose a style here. You've got some pretty easy ones to understand. You've got the size, which is sitting here. Okay, what font size do you want it to be? Now, one of the things you're going to notice is I get really annoyed when I have to choose a font and I drag it. Okay, well, that's not big enough, so let's start typing in numbers. Maybe that's not what I want because I want it to fill the page. And I'm going to keep choosing font sizes and going up and up and up until I get the size that I want. Well, what I can do to resize a font, because a font is actually vector at this point, meaning it hasn't been converted to pixels just yet. You're getting a vector representation. So I can choose the layer here, and I'm going to make sure that transform controls at the top left here is selected so I can actually see all the resizing options and rotation options around the text. I'm going to grab the corner and holding Shift on my keyboard to keep the proportions. I can just enlarge it that way, and watch what's going to happen. When I get the size that I want, notice that the size automatically adjusted. Personally, I find that the easiest way to adjust a font size, to actually resize it, as opposed to choosing the size and typing in numbers right here. Use those resizing handles to make it bigger or smaller, because again, it is still vector at this point. With that done, I'm just going to throw in a second line of text to bring in this second point. So the next thing I can do is highlight my text. We talked about the size of it. We talked about the style of it. Let's talk about the tracking. The tracking is the amount of space between letters. Now, the designer has come up with the set space that they wanted between letters to make it look good. But maybe when I look at this, I find that they're too spaced out. I want it to be a little bit more squished. Now, you can do that by going with the condensed font, but maybe that's not enough. So I can click this little drop down menu here and I can use this slider and notice, now this is overkill, but you'll notice that I can squish the letters together a little bit closer if I wanted to. So if I wanted them to be a little bit closer together, that's kind of cool. Or I can make that really wide apart. So if you wanted to space it across your design, you can do that as well. So that is the tracking. And if I wanted to get a set number, I could just type it in there. So I'll type 0 and now we're back to normal. The leading is the spacing between lines. Now you'll notice here auto is selected. That means that Photopea is going to choose what it thinks is the best based on your font size. So it will adjust it. If your font's bigger, it'll leave more space. If it gets smaller, the space gets smaller. But I can take full control over this. For instance, maybe I feel that these two lines are really they're too far apart and I want them to be closer. I can click the drop down menu. Obviously that's way too close. And what I can do, and it looks like we're at the point where I have to type in numbers again, is I can start typing in numbers and I can take full control over the spacing of those two lines. Or you can just click auto and it will do the auto spacing for you. Now, as I mentioned earlier, designers will come up with their own what they feel bold should look like. So in this case, what I'm going to do though is I'm going to go back to that Emily font. Now, instead of me searching through all of this, I'm just going to type it in and there it is right there where I can bring it up a lot quicker. And you'll notice that there is no bold version of this. So what am I supposed to do? Well, you can use these properties at the bottom. So there's the first one here is what's called a faux bold. What's going to happen is the program is basically going to pump pixels into it to make it look bold, but really designers do that. They want it to be a specific kind of weight. So you can choose to make it a faux bold, faux italic. You can make it all caps. Now you'll notice here that it's already capitalized when I typed it, so you don't really notice the difference. But if I was to put this all lowercase, and I think in the case of Emily's Candy, you can't even go lowercase. Sorry, you can. I had it selected. So you can make it, type it all lowercase and then force it to be uppercase. You could force it all to be small caps, which means it's small. It's all caps, but it's still smaller. Superscript, subscript, and you can play around with these and kind of see how they all work. So that is the basics of text and how you can play around with it on your screen. Now let's talk briefly about what happens if there's a font that I want to use but it's not in here. For instance, if I go to this next tab here, this is a website called defont.com, and they give you a bunch of fonts for free. You can download them and you can use them into your design, in your designs. Some of them do have restrictions, like you have to let them know that you use their font. You'd have to look at the copyright, but for the most part, you can use these all for free. So let's say I'm doing a design for Halloween and I want kind of a creepy font that I want to use. So I'll type in Halloween or spooky or whatever the case may be. And that looks pretty cool. That's the one I want. CF Halloween right here. And there's the designer of it. Well, if that's the one that I want to use, I can actually download it and install it into Photopea so that it'll use it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to download it. Okay, and here we go. So I'll download it onto my computer. Now this makes what's called a zip file. So it's a bunch of files that have been compressed into one folder. So I'm going to extract that really quickly. Now the way I would do is I right click on it and I choose extract here, or you can choose one of these other options. You can also just open it if you wanted to. And the file that we're looking for is this TTF file right here. We need access to that. So again, what I'm going to do is extract the files here, or extract all is probably the easiest one. Everyone has that. There you go. We've got where do you want to put it. I'm going to extract it. It's going to show me the files when I'm done. There they all are. And there's that TTF font, true type font that I'm going to need. So I'm going to remember this location right here. I'm going to go back to Photopea, and what's really cool about this for a web application is I can either open up one of their existing fonts, I can find it, or I can load a font. So I'm going to choose load fonts. There's my Halloween font right there, the TTF file. It could also be OTF or TTC. Those are other font types that this will recognize. Now, this is just saying that, hey, if you use this right now, the next time you come back here, it won't be here anymore. So what you can do is go into the properties and actually make it so the next time you come back to Photopea, it will remember, provided you stay on the same computer, I'm pretty sure. So now the Halloween, CF Halloween is now loaded. I can go here now. Let's see what happens if I go CF. There's my font, CF Halloween, and it does not seem to play nice with that font. That's the unfortunate part. So I chose one at random, and unfortunately I chose incorrectly. It does work, and I'm going to pause the video right here. I'm going to load another font, and I'm going to prove to you that it works. All right, we're back. I found a font that wasn't quite as complicated. So I think the problem with the last font that I had was that it has this little graphic here that was not playing nice with the Photopea software. So I downloaded this one here, Halloween, right here, and then I loaded it into Photopea. You can see it right there, and it works just fine. So you may have struggles. It is a free software, folks. You get what you pay for. It's a fantastic software for free, but just to be aware of that. So that is how you can play around with the font. And again, you'll notice here that it's on its own layer. You may want to rename that layer simply by double clicking it. You'll notice that it took the name, which is fantastic. And you can stack letters on top of each other and play around with that. We'll do another video next, which will show you how to do some advanced techniques with fonts. But for now, you've got the basics to get going.